Hello, my name is Briar. Welcome to my channel. Today I am very excited because it is July 31st, which means it is the last day of Camp NaNoWriMo. How have your guys' camps been going? Have you been able to accomplish your goals? I am happy to say that in my goal of writing 40,000 words in the month of July, I actually hit that goal yesterday on Sunday, July 30th, and I currently have 40,136 words or so, and I think that's the first time I've won a camp with a word count since I've been participating in Camp NaNoWriMos. So that's super exciting for me, and I'm really excited to see where I'm going to continue going with this story. However, there's a couple of things from my writing goal for this month that I did not accomplish. So today I want to talk about my experience with Camp NaNoWriMo this year and where my story is going to be going forward. First things first, I set out to rewrite a draft of a middle grade fantasy novel that I wrote first in November 2019, and I revised it a couple of times, but this month, July 1st, I was setting out to start from zero and rewrite all of the words of that story to get through Act 1, maybe Act 2 of that novel and have a full new draft basically by the end of summer. If you followed any of my Camp Nano updates, you know that that did not happen at all. I started on July 1st with page 1, word 1 of my rewrite, and I got through, if you're following the Save the Cat beats, I got through my opening image, the theme stated, the setup, and I got about 3,000 words into the debate when I realized that the things that I was rewriting this for, to improve the pacing, to deepen the characters and make sure my characters were consistent, and all of those things that I was setting out to improve, they were not improving with this new draft. I wanted to make the story more punchy at the beginning, make it easier for the characters to get into the catalyst and get things moving, and that didn't happen. It didn't happen because the framing of the story, the setting, the exterior world of everything, it was still too big. There were too many characters, there was too much going on. More on that in my mid-camp updates, but I lasted maybe, I can't even remember, like 8-9 days working on my rewrite before I scrapped it, and I started instead using all of my words to explore how I'm going to restructure this entire book into a multi-book series. Now this book had always been intended to be book 1 of a series. So it wasn't a surprise to me that there were going to be more books needed to tell this story. However, I thought that I would have enough content to make one story out of the first week of these characters discovering their magic and things like that. And ultimately realized that I still had too much story and I needed to break it apart. I thought that I would be able to split up this 1 week of story time for the characters because they're going on a camping trip with their school, basically, where they leave on Monday and come back on Friday. And that was going to be the framing device for initially the first book. And then as I realized that it was too much story, it was going to be the framing device for the first 3 or 4 books. And as I continued to draft outlines for these 3 books and how this character would grow over this week of their life, I realized that that entire framing device needed to change. This is a more recent realization. So ultimately what this came to is I realized that I need to change this framing structure for my story. It can no longer be the week-long field trip that I had envisioned because I feel like that's asking too much of the reader to follow along for these 3 or 4 books that take place at this 1 week-long summer camp or school camp, and then also continue on with the characters beyond that framing device, because that would not be the end of the story. That would just be the first few books at the beginning of a much longer story. And I realized that it was asking too much. It was doing too much. It was still trying, story of my life, it was still trying to do too much. So instead, what I've spent the last several days revising and working on is how to adjust that frame so that it is not a week-long field trip, but book 1 is happening on a day trip, field trip with the school, and they're going to be able to meet the characters, do all the things that I initially envisioned for book 1 of this restructuring, and then they'll go home at the end of the day. And book 2 is going to be completely different. It's going to address the same themes that I wanted to address. It's going to have similar beats to it, but it's not going to be happening at this school camp any longer because I need something bigger. I need to make the world bigger for my characters to have more to explore and room to grow, which unfortunately means restructuring my entire outline again, which is not how I had planned to spend my Camp NaNoWriMo. So basically what has happened this month is I have discovered a plotting issue, which was creating a pacing issue in my book. I divided that book into 4 books following the same structure of a week at a science camp with their class, and realized that that was still too much, and I had to split that into a different structure where there's a field trip in the first book and then everything else is happening closer to home, closer to school, and in the wider world of this story versus happening at a singular location. So yeah, it's been a rough ride, but it got me 40,000 words in 30 days. So I'm very excited about that. And moving forward, I am going to be continuing to work on how to restructure this to make it into a more cohesive and better, honestly, just a better series overall. And in November, my goal is to have this series outlined enough that I can sit down on November 1st and start rewriting book 1 again. So yeah, this Camp NaNoWriMo was a win, a success in the fact that I did write 40,000 words, and I'm really excited about that. And I've been writing every day, and I've been excited to write every day. So that's great. But it was also a failure in that I have discovered major issues with my story, and most of those words have been outlining and world building and idea generation, more so than they have been actually writing this story. But that's part of being a writer, I guess, is writing something and seeing where the issues are and growing as a writer, in that I've seen the issues of this second draft plot structure rewrite before I even started writing it. I saw the errors that I was making, and I stepped back to reevaluate and rewrite it. So I have the first book of my 3rd structuring of this story basically outlined. I know what that book is going to look like. I know what the characters are going to be doing, and I have much deeper understanding of the characters and the world. So that's a success. I need to continue figuring out how I'm going to expand this story into the real world when they're all going to different schools and they're all doing different things, and how that's going to work in book 2 and ultimately in books 3 and 4. At this point, I've decided that I'm going to make this a 4-book series. So there's going to be 4 books overall in the main part of the series. I have ideas for how these 4 books could even expand into more and more later on in the future. So I have ideas for how this story is going to lay out in 4 books. I can develop the character arcs and the character's growth and the world and the conflict over 4 books pretty solidly. And in my head, I still have some ideas for what could happen after that 4th book if I decide to continue this series on in the future. But before I get that far, I have to finish writing book 1. So that's going to be my goal for the rest of this year, 2023, is to get done with outlining and figuring out all of the details and all of that, so that in November and December, I can sit down and write book 1 and have that done by the end of 2023. That is my goal. That is a pretty big goal for me because I'm bad at finishing things, but I feel like putting that out into the universe, that's what I want to have happen, so that's what I'm going to be aiming for. What about you? How have your Camp NaNoWriMos been going? It is the last day. Have you met your goals, or have you, like me, met one goal and kind of fallen off the wagon on a different one? And how are you feeling? Are you satisfied with where you are? Because even though I met my word count goal and I completely fell off the wagon of my product goal that I had set for the end of this month, I'm really happy with where I'm going because I know that my story is getting better. It's going to be a lot more work than I wanted it to be because I thought that I'd already done that work, but I'm really satisfied with what I foresee happening in this story in the future. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work on that, and hopefully by cultivating this daily writing habit that I've had through July, I'll be able to maintain that for the rest of the year and get at least some words done every day. And that will see me through this quite large goal of finishing book 1, at least the first draft of book 1 this year. Let me know how your July has gone in the comments. I would love to hear more about everyone's plans for the future. Like I said, I'm going to continue trying to write every day, figuring out this whole story so that on November 1st, for traditional NaNoWriMo, I'll be able to start writing from word 0 again. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos about me and my writing journey. I am going to be posting more about my writing process and how I've been generating ideas and where I go with those ideas based on what I've seen from the abandoned stories video that I uploaded last week. And hopefully you guys will stick around and want to see more from me. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys in my next video, which I will probably be only uploading on Mondays for the foreseeable future until I can build back up to doing 2 videos a week once I've learned how to balance my job and filming and all of these things. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next week at the latest. Bye.